Haryana Himachal Education Summit Season 3, Overseas Education Partner ESS Global. Today we have gathered here to discuss the future of education, whether it is technical education or humanities. The changes in the education sector globally, the impact it has had on education here in this region, and the opportunities this region has to offer in the education sector. We'll discuss how teaching has changed and how the methods of teaching and learning have changed for students and keep on changing. A teacher not only has to be a teacher but also an awakener, such that the students follow her or him, but also leave them behind in terms of purpose, in terms of education and research. That is the whole purpose of education, is it not? So with that, let's begin the discussions, but before that, let's have a look at the purpose of the summit through an audio visual.
ये तय किया है कि आने वाले 5 वर्षों में हम अपनी इकोनॉमी के साइज को 2 गुना करने का प्रयास करेंगे। $5 ट्रिलियन आज एक टारगेट उसको हमारे सामने हमने रखा है।
कहते हैं नागरिक शिक्षित तो देश विकसित। 2024-25 तक देश को $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी और ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक पावर हाउस बनाने का जो लक्ष्य प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने रखा है, उसे पूरा करने में पंजाब, हरियाणा, हिमाचल का अहम योगदान रहा है। मॉडर्न एजुकेशन और असीम संभावनाओं की इस डिजिटल एरा में नई पहचान बना चुका है पंजाब, जहां आज हाइब्रिड एजुकेशन का एक नया संसार देखने को मिल रहा है। रिच एग्रीकल्चर के साथ ही पंजाब क्वालिटी एजुकेशन का हब बन गया है, जहां देश के लीडिंग एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट्स, एडवांस एजुकेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, लेटेस्ट फैसिलिटीज और स्किल्ड फैकल्टीज के साथ देश और दुनिया भर के स्टूडेंट्स के सपने को दे रहे हैं ऊंची उड़ान। इंजीनियरिंग, मेडिकल, बिजनेस, ह्यूमैनिटीज, लॉ के क्षेत्र में करियर बनाने का सपना देखने वाले लाखों स्टूडेंट्स की पहली पसंद बना हुआ है पंजाब। टॉप इंस्टीट्यूशंस स्टूडेंट्स के एकेडमिक्स से लेकर उनके स्किल और ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट पर फोकस करते हैं। नेशनल और ग्लोबल एजुकेशनल सिनेरियो में धाक जमा चुके पंजाब के एजुकेशन सिस्टम से जुड़े मुद्दों को सामने लाना जरूरी है। पंजाब का एजुकेशन सेक्टर कितनी तेजी से ग्रोथ कर रहा है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के एडवांसमेंट में अभी और क्या कदम उठाए जाने हैं, ऐसे कई जरूरी पहलुओं पर बातचीत का महामंच लेकर आ रहा है न्यूज 18 पंजाब, हरियाणा, हिमाचल एजुकेशन समिट सीजन 3। एक ऐसा मंच जहां एजुकेशन सेक्टर के लीडर्स होंगे एक साथ। पैनल डिस्कशन में गंभीर सवालों के जवाब तलाशे जाएंगे, साथ ही सार्थक चर्चा से हासिल होंगे बेहतर सुझाव और एजुकेशनल रोड मैप भी तैयार किया जाएगा। न्यूज 18 पंजाब, हरियाणा, हिमाचल एजुकेशन समिट सीजन 3 ग्लोबल एजुकेशन की ब्लूप्रिंट की तैयारी पर चर्चा की जाएगी, ताकि पंजाब बना रहे क्वालिटी एजुकेशन की बेस्ट डेस्टिनेशन। इसी अनूठी पहल की आज साक्षी बनने जा रही है न्यूज 18 पंजाब, हरियाणा, हिमाचल एजुकेशन समिट सीजन 3।
साडी पहुंच तुहाडी ताकत।
Let's now move on to the keynote address, and our keynote speaker is Mr. Sarabjit Singh Virk, Managing Director of Finvasia. Let's look at an audio visual first.
Before starting
Mr. Sarabjit Singh Virk is an ex-Wall Street banker who co-founded Finvasia. For more than a decade, the company has worked hard building its legacy, with offices in India, Canada, and Europe. It became India's fastest growing fintech. He's an inspiration for many young entrepreneurs and startups today. Let's hear the insights on Indian education and economy from the man himself, Mr. Sarjeet Singh Virk.
I'd now like to call Mr. Virk to the podium and deliver the keynote address.
Thank you. Very warm welcome, everyone, to a great session, Education Summit Session 3. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and more importantly, looking at the best institutes of India and Northern India on the same platform, trying to understand what is the vision. That's key itself explains what are we planning to discuss today. I'm absolutely delighted to talk about the Thapar Institute, PEC, IIT, ISB, Palaksha, CU, CT. I think the list can go on and on and on. And that's the commendable effort we all, especially institutes, have put together to see how do we create an ecosystem which is ready for today and tomorrow. Before I really move forward, I would really like to talk about few facts about the education sector. India spends around 3.1% of its GDP on education. Ideally, it should have been 6%. The brain drain which we are going through right now takes away almost 11 lakh students, and forget about the 80 million USD foreign exchange which goes out predominantly for foreign education. Chandigarh and Haryana has been the highest student seeking internships, all compliments to the best colleges around here. And Punjab is at number 5. 75% of the employees still find there are gaps in the students who are looking forward to be part of the industry. The silver lining is that the women employable has really gone up from 46% to 52%. But that doesn't mean that it's going to stop us. We're talking about a 5 trillion economy, and I think the input being education and output being economy, the industry, the entrepreneurs are going to play a vital role in order to make that happen. Right now we need to understand that we have two battles. The first is the Atmanirbhar India, which means the industry needs to be available, scalable right now, today. And we need to be global competitive in few years. We are talking about being self-independent, which means we need to create our own ecosystem infrastructure right here. And for all that to happen, it is time that industry, academia, please get married. We are over the courtship right now. Moving forward, I can really relate to some of, incidences which are around, which is COVID to the education. And I'll tell you why. We are actually getting into an inorganic growth right now. We are getting into a massive demand right now. We are talking about not only domestic, but our need to be more global competitive. For that, the problem is today. And the answer is education. For us to fix that, we need two things. First, we need to create an ecosystem which is more ready and skilling our existing students, our existing employees. And at the same time, we need to be ready for future. Future comes only through technology. We have seen that, we have proved that over a period of time. The only way to take things forward is how do we digitalize all this. And I think it is important element that we educate the faculty who are equal stakeholders to the institute. They are the one who actually drive the students. They are the one who know what the problems are. They are the one who can actually find solutions which are futuristic driven. So I strongly feel that the faculty needs to be equally digitalized along with the institute and the students. Moving forward, I think one of the key areas what we have realized is research. We all been talking about it. Research has somehow become our passion, but unfortunately there has been a missing in the planning side of it. We all want to do a wonderful research. We want to be a perfect research country in the world, but guess what? We are not there. We are writing on a document, but we are not able to execute it. We are planning to do something which we know without getting to the industry and saying, hey, what's your problem? Can I really sit back and talk to you and find out what should be my research? So it is time to understand that industry is playing a role for research, and that can only happen when you take inputs from it. Maybe it is time to incentivize them and say, hey, your research is over when it is executed and not on the paper. And I think we need to push the PhD students to understand and, hey, go out, talk to the industry first before coming back and saying, hey, that's my research or thesis to it. Moving forward, I think we all are proud of our rural area. And I think the important element is how do we educate the rural sector. And I think that's one of the areas which I feel is going to be talked during the day. But please don't forget, the maximum employability happens in the MSMEs. And that happens from the rural sector. We have seen people who are looking forward to get jobs. But unfortunately, they are not industry ready. That's the challenge. And for that to happen, I think we all need to build a hybrid and a digital ecosystem which is more accessible to the rural students. Please don't forget, the foreign institutes are now fighting with you because they are also getting digital. So the quality of education is going to be paramount for someone who is not just in metro, but sitting on a remote area in a rural background trying to build something which he can implement either in his farming or in agriculture or in his MSME. So all that put together, we need to create a bridge between a rural education and our education system. At the end, I'll say economy and industry is not looking for educated people. We are looking for industry-ready people. We are not looking for qualified people. We are looking for problem-solving people. We are not looking for SOP-driven people. We want value-driven people. And for all that to happen, there is just one solution: education. We all need to sit down and understand and create a process which is more relevant. And I think it will be making more sense that in this whole course of discussion, if we create an output where we need to understand that the top-down has to be a process change and bottom-up has to be a mindset change. With all that, I'll say, let's talk about it, let's fix it, and let's make sure that our vision is in line with India at 100 and India being the #1 hosting countries of Unicorn. Thank you very much and welcome to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your opening remarks on the summit. We'll now move on to our first session, Future of Technical Education. Let's have a look at the purpose of the discussion through an audio visual.
एजुकेशन के सेशन एजुकेशन सेक्टर के दिग्गज जैसे थापर, टेक और आईआईटी के प्रतिनिधि शामिल होंगे और चर्चा करेंगे कि खुद में बदलाव लाते हुए मार्केट में आए चैलेंजेस का उन्होंने कैसे सामना किया, अपने गहन अनुभव और मजबूत प्लेटफॉर्म का वो किस तरह बेहतरीन इस्तेमाल करेंगे, कैसे भविष्य को आकार देने में मदद मिलेगी।
I now like to invite Mr. Jyoti Kamal, Managing Editor, News18, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, to please escort the panelists on the stage. Dr. Maninder Singh, Dean, Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. Dr. Baldev Setia, Director, Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh. Professor Rajiv Ahuja, Director, IIT, Ropar. Dr. Maninder Singh comes from the field of computer science with specialization in network security. Dr. Baldev Setia was appointed the Director of PEC last year. He comes from the field of civil engineering and has over 35 years of experience in teaching. Professor Rajiv Ahuja took charge as the Director of IIT Ropar last year. A distinguished teacher, he comes from the field of computational materials. He is a Fellow of the Royal Society Chemistry. Over to you, Jyoti Kamal.
Thank you so much, Arshi. Thank you, Professor Maninder. Thank you, Dr. Setia. Thank you, Professor Ahuja. You invest in a car, you can start enjoying it right away. You spend a lot of money on a house, you can still start living in it. You start investing in education, it's a long-drawn process. You have to understand that there are going to be maybe tangible, intangible benefits. Will they be there? Will they not be there? Will they be what you imagined? Would they have changed by the time you actually reach the goal that you had initially planned? So it's a tedious process, and it's getting all the more tedious because it's changing by the hour now, I would rather say that. Once upon a time, you could create a syllabus and probably revisit it maybe a decade later. Then it became 5 years, then it became 2 years, and now all the time there is this constant cribbing that syllabi are not keeping pace with what's happening in the world around. So if we start straight off, Professor Maninder, with you, what are the trends that you are seeing in technical education? If we talk about the current trends that you are seeing, COVID firstly caused a huge acceleration in adoption of a lot of technologies which would have otherwise probably taken 5 to 10 years to be adopted to the level that they have currently been absorbed. But other than that, what are the prominent trends that you're seeing in technical education?
Hello. So, good evening everyone. See what is happening in the technical education scenario. So more or so the people are looking forward to one particular stream, which is actually losing the sheen which we have in technical education. So like everybody would like to have his or her ward to be doing computer engineering. Okay. Now out of this what has happened, there are lots of many mushrooming of different flavors of computer science that have come up. The people are saying that I'll do computer science engineering, computer engineering, software engineering, IT. They have actually confused the whole lot. Now what is happening technically, if you look at, the base remains the same, but the changes which are happening, if they are adopted in a systematic manner, then I think this confusion will also go off and the people will be readily available for the market. Like let me cite an example. When we started our computer engineering program at Thapar, so it's almost 26-year-old program now, people came to us and said, so-and-so institute has started, be in artificial intelligence, be in machine learning. What you are doing? Why you are not starting it? Then I said, see, the main crux of the problem is that the base subjects for each and everything, even if it is AI or ML or CS, base remains same. So it's just a nomenclature or naming convention which I am going to give. Why not to have a base degree as computer engineering, but we can have elective focus in different branches. So elective focus in machine learning, but with the industry partnership. So this is how the people will come forward and take, even industry is ready for consuming your students. Like we started in computer engineering, financial derivatives. We knew that the people, industry needs them. And they need brilliant people who have computer acumen. Along with that, they wanted a financial aptitude also. So we said, okay, we'll start a elective focus, but we didn't have a faculty from computer science teaching financial derivatives. So what is the alternate? Go to the industry, ask them, these are the 4 courses. Can you teach this along with my people? My people will get trained, and utilizing that, vis-a-vis we'll have some kind of collaboration, some kind of consultancies come, and the students will have a real exposure of the industry, what is happening. So that way I think the technical education should change and adapt to this as and when required.
You know, you were talking that a lot of people now want to do computer science and they're like focused on certain very narrow areas that they want to operate in. Once upon a time, educational institutes used to be the repositories of knowledge. If you were in a large area, the only place you would get education would be in a Takshila or in a Nalanda, where you would have repository of knowledge. Knowledge was not otherwise available. Gradually it started kind of reaching more kind of institutes. You had the Oxfords and the Cambridges coming up, then you had colleges coming up, then you had more and more schools, colleges opening all over. They all became repositories of information, which was otherwise not available in the general kind of social environment. But 20 years back, 25 years back, that started changing with information technology, the internet. Now knowledge is available everywhere. It's loaded. You have access to knowledge everywhere. Now it's become a reverse problem. There is an abundance of knowledge available now. Now for educational institutes, rather the challenge is, how do you kind of map out that abundance of knowledge and actually show people a route through that knowledge that they can possibly follow, otherwise they'll be lost in that ocean of knowledge. So, but on the other side, Professor Sethi, if I come to you, the same challenge exists for on the teaching side also. You're also swamped by knowledge now. What do you focus on? How do you teach it? How much do you teach? What are the add-on subjects that you teach? How do you make the way first? Then you'll be able to transfer it to students. Do you feel that that challenge exists today? Or am I kind of overemphasizing that and hyping it up a little bit too much?
Good evening. Well, I believe this challenge is equally open to the faculty as well. Our faculty, well, they need to brush up. Just like the technology is changing, the whole knowledge base is changing. And just like you said, we may be lost in that ocean of knowledge. I would say it's ocean of information. It's not exactly knowledge. But in order to make it reach to the students, I believe now is the time when we should be thinking on it in terms of holistic approach. That's something where perhaps we have not laid that kind of stress which was required in the past. I believe even today, whenever we have, say, educational debates, we talk in terms of wedding the industry with education or trying to align the sciences with engineering and technology. Is it not that still we are talking in terms of very narrow, or if I'm allowed to say, the outdated recipe? I believe now is the time when we should be opening up and taking into consideration the value-based technical education that's been duly enshrined in our national education policy also. An engineer today requires, say, knowledge or information or that kind of teaching, not only in sciences, not only in engineering and technology, but also in human behavior, in economics, in finances, and everything, in value-based systems. So that's where I believe our education should now be taken. We just cannot say that our, say, learning has to be science-based or our technology has to be only industry-driven. Those are well-established facts. There's no denying the fact that it has to be aligned, but the responsibility and the onus is still higher, much more than this. And that is, we need to be talking in terms of giving them the value-based technical education.
Dr. Sethi, you are from Punjab Engineering College, which is a legendary institute here and globally. How easy do you find it now, like you're talking about the change that should be there? Is it easy to bring about that change? And since you are quite connected with the global kind of teaching faculty, do you feel that India is picking up pace in terms of bringing about change? Do you see that picking up of pace taking place? Or do you feel that there is still a long way to go and the change that you envisage and want to bring about quickly is not really happening?
Well said that I belong to an institute which is 100 years old. There are some merits and there are the flip side of the institute being so old. I feel that it's also an opportunity for us. The changes that I want to bring in, or the changes that I envisage, or the changes I believe are expected or required, they are not that difficult. We just are afraid of the unknown. This value-based technical education or value-based higher education, how many of us really think that in technical education our humanities and social sciences departments, they should be duly strengthened? It's very easy. Now I would like to take the example when I was studying in 80s, early 80s. We had practically no access to our teachers. Or for that matter, if I extend that idea a little further, we were not even having very open dialogue with our parents. But now we are having open dialogues with our parents and extending that idea to our teachers. If our students get an open idea or open dialogue with their teachers, then I believe these are simple measures, simple means by which our students will be able to learn and grow much faster and in a much better way. And in an institute like Punjab Engineering College, I believe that is very much doable, and we are on that track, let me assure you. We are on that track. We are strengthening our humanities and social sciences department. One of our major bottlenecks or say situation that we had, that in our institute we have an applied science department where physics, chemistry, maths are clubbed together. I believe it is high time we divide it into physics, chemistry, maths and draw the benefits and dividends from that. So measures are possible and measures are being taken, and other institutes I believe certainly can take it up, provided Now we start moving towards the value-based technical education. That's very much required.
Important point being made by you there about the value-based technical education. In fact, this world is run by techies. I mean, there is no denying it. One can say, I mean, like they often say, there is so much power in such few hands today. And those few hands belong to the techies, the technical side people. So that's where, when so much power rests in the hands of so few, values, humanities, ethics, morals, the human kind of aspect of technology becomes all the more important, because pure technology can go in directions which might not be the direction that you want to take it to. In fact, we'll be having, in the next panel also, we'll be discussing that. We have Guru here, we have Pallavi Jain here, we have Professor Siddharth here, so we'll be talking about that, because they are taking a slightly different approach to education, blending it with the liberal arts, the sciences, humanities. But taking it forward from here, Dr. Ahuja, you occupy a very unique position that you have spent the last 3 decades almost in Uppsala in Sweden, and now you are the director of IIT Ropar. So what we were talking about just now, things that are being attempted here, things that we want to bring about, the change that we want to bring about, Nordic countries have taken a very different approach to that. Their education system is very different. You talk about the Finnish school system, and then you talk about Karolinska Institute, Uppsala. So they have a very different approach to education. So when you see how IIT Ropar is currently functioning, though of course that change has already started, the very fact that you are the director of IIT Ropar indicates that change has begun. But what has your experience been, and what are the trends that you are seeing going forward?
Thank you. Good evening. And thanks me asking this question actually. And this is my main aim to come to India. So that's what we are already driving at IIT Ropar. So whatever has been said by Professor Setia or my other fellow colleagues, actually this kind of practice we are already taking in IIT's system. You can always think about why in India IITs are always doing good. IITs are known all over the world because this process is already started in IITs since the inspection. Because when IITs was set up, we were setting the IIT on the science-based engineering education. So that what somehow neglected in the new technical institution, the science become like a step son or something, and then we are mainly focusing on engineering. So that has created a lot of, you can say that when you talk about innovation or we talk about entrepreneurship, without having a strong basic science, you cannot be innovative.
Sir, I'll interrupt you for a second just to make the point that you're making further clear. Sometimes we tend to kind of not understand the difference between science, engineering, and technology. So science is what you're talking about, that needs focus. Engineering is what normally people assume the overall area to be. And technology, what we kind of talk about, how it's kind of executing the engineering, sometimes we tend to kind of club it also there. So what you're trying to say is that engineering, while something that is focused on, science sometimes tends to take a back burner there.
Yes,
it's in the shadows.
Yes, yes.
So that's where that basic science, the basic research, which is the foundation of eventually engineering, technology, gets the, what do you say, gets the soft side or doesn't really get the focus.
Yes, yes. So in my opinion, actually, when you ask me what are the challenges or how, where India is going when it concerns to even IITs also, and I can tell you that we have a strong base of science, technology, and now there is a chance we can take the advantage to be a leader in the area of science and technology, and we should be the leader, and we have to focus not only on the IT. Everybody is talking about computer science, computer science, computer science. But if we want to be, when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, so we have to also focus on our manufacturing sector. And it means we should not only focus on computer science, but we have to focus also on material science, which is one of the key area which we are missing right now. And especially when when we're talking about the semiconductor industries, we're talking about chips and computers. We cannot make those things here because those sector was neglected, and we were mainly focusing on IT. IT is good, but in the end, we have to be a hub for manufacturing also. India should be hub. And you can see that when Indians go abroad, they go for IT. Why they don't go for a manufacturing sector? So we have to think about that, why IT people are so in demand in not only in India, but all over the world. So there is some reason, because Indians are very good in mathematics. So this is the whole, all IT is driven. And we can say that since I spent 30 years abroad, I will say that European countries, they are not good in mathematics. So IT people are in demand because of they cannot do better than us. But on the other hand, when we talk about the manufacturing sector, they are not asking Indians to come in the manufacturing sector there. They want people from IT. So we have to develop our own manufacturing sector here. We should focus skill-based education.
But Dr. Ahuja, just to kind of further analyze what you just said, you said Indians and students from IIT, graduates from IIT, they're good at mathematics, something that Europeans may not be on an average.
I say that the Indians on average, okay, IITs, we are the cream of India actually, and then, so this is the brain of whole India, so that's why IITs are also doing good. That's also one of them.
Maths is definitely a foundational science.
Yes.
I mean, it's the bedrock on which science is built. But when you talk about the fact that Indians are good at mathematics, but when we talk about innovation, when we talk about new kind of areas that the world is moving into, somehow India doesn't seem to be leading there. So are we ending up using our mathematics to be calculators of the Western world? What is happening with our mathematics?
So that's a very good question. Why we are not innovative? Why India is not innovative country? Because we didn't put much emphasis in the past on the basic science. Basic science is the mother of innovation. Without, you can think about Europe or any Western countries, they have a very strong base of basic science. That's why they are innovative. When you start with the Nordic countries, they are the top 5 innovative countries in the world. Why? Because they put a lot of efforts on the basic science. Basic science is not part of only in a university and engineering college there, but it's part of the industry also there. When we talk about why industry and academia institution, they talk here. They don't talk each other. They are doing, so that's the point we are missing in India, which was already mentioned by you. And this is the culture we have to bring. That culture is there already. When you go in any industry there, you will feel that you are not in a industry. You will feel, this is like the same, like my department where I was working. I don't feel any difference in a big industry if I go to any Nordic countries or in my university. So innovation and collaboration, that's what we are also missing in India. We have to work as a team, and we have to work, industry and academia has to work together, and then we can be leader and we can be innovative. So innovation will come through basic science.
I'll take that to Dr. Maninder. We are talking about innovation, we are talking about connecting the dots essentially. There is nothing that India lacks in. India doesn't lack in any of the areas that we are talking about. We have excellence in students, we have excellence in faculty, we have brilliant people sitting across the dais, we have brilliant people sitting here. The dots are already there. Now it is about connecting the dots. So when we start connecting the dots, are there any challenges that we are facing there? Those connections are already getting established. It's not as if they are not. There are so many initiatives that have been taken even in this region about bringing together institutes of higher learning, institutes of excellence to kind of work together, collaborate together so that that information can be moved rapidly between them. There is information sharing. But at the end of the day, that culture has to build up, because once the culture builds up, only then it will really start happening. Because the human factor, we sometimes keep tending to ignore the human factor. Ultimately, there are egos that are involved, there is control that is involved, there is access that you don't want to give, there are resources that you want to hold on to. So all of those things. So a culture has to build up when you realize that yes, that sharing is absolutely necessary. What has your experience been in terms of allowing for that sharing to start taking place? Because if we talk about engineering, excellent engineers are being produced by institutes here. But when we talk about innovation, which is needed absolutely to take India to the next level in terms of bringing in technologies which the world will adopt from India rather than we are simply adopting technologies. So how do you see that change happen?
See, Jyoti, the main issue here is we need to shake the system. It hasn't happened so far. Let me cite you one statistics. 3% of the students in India are attracting 50% of the funding.
Once again?
3% of the students in India are attracting 50% of funding. What about those 97%? We need to think aloud that what is happening, why it is happening. The reason is, how many IITs will be able to build? Is it possible? It's a big country, it's not a small set of people which we need to cater to. So when the population is so big, we need to think aloud that what will happen, what is the next thing? We have 23 IITs, we have 31 NITs, but there are other premier institutes also. So now what is happening? Let's say I don't get, it's on that particular day. I don't get into IIT. What will happen to me? I am looking for a tier 2, so-called tier 2 institute. What will happen? I'll go to some private institute, which is good, okay, which has infrastructure, which is giving me everything, but their fee is very high. As a student, if you think of me, what I'll do? I'll go to tier 2 government institute, which will not have the infrastructure as is as IIT or as of that private institute. So we need to shake this system. We need to bring that kind of funding, some kind of subsidy in this kind of a world, that what will happen to the technical education when we want to give it to everybody.
Just to go back to that statistic that you gave for everybody's clarity, you are saying 3% of students get 50% of what funding? The government
funding.
Or the government funding that is spent in higher technical education, 50% of that goes to cater to just 3% of students, is what you're saying.
Precisely, that is happening. Now see what happens. Apart from that, it's okay. This is one thing, but there will be some institute who will come up to that level. Okay, we will be doing homework, we will spend our efforts, and let's do it. And that's how it has to come. We have to prepare a strategic plan. And following that plan only we can raise the standard of innovation. Then only innovation can come. I'll cite one example. Third year student, BE third year student, computer science engineering, just got a funding of $1.7 million for his small innovation. Third year BE CSE student. So that means the people, at Thapar, Gagandeep Rehel. So he has his own YouTube channel, -0. So he has his own startup and he got this kind of a funding. So I'm not citing only Thapar. There will be n number of such institutes where these bright block will be there. IIT may be that 80% or 90% of students are good. But when it comes to tier 2, still they will have, or tier 3 institutes, still they will have 2 to 3% of bright students. Now who is going to cater to them?
I'll take that question to Professor Setia. Who is going to cater to them? What can be done? What can be, I mean, how, because it can't get smarter and more kind of senior than what we have here. So how do we kind of get that done?
Yeah, very right. First and foremost, I endorse his views that there is skewed spending. But then I look at this kind of spending or expenditure as not exactly expenditure, but investment. Why? Because the country has multifarious objectives. Our objective is not only to give education to all, that objective stands, but at the same time, we have to be working for excellence. So both the objectives have to be met with. On the first hand, I endorse and strengthen this view, but at the same time I supported that IITs and the tier 2 institutes, say the triple ITs, the centrally funded technical institutes, the NITs, and those other institutes which have institutes of repute, institutes of national importance, they all need to be supported earlier to or first in comparison to the other institutes. So when we say that it is 3%, undoubtedly that's very small amount or that's very small number. But at the same time, if you do it equally instead of equity, it's going to be a disaster. We will have nothing. Today in India, we are churning out 31 lakh engineers. It is 50-50 in comparison to graduate and diploma engineers, and close to something like 3,000 engineering institutes. That magnitude is too large, enormous. And for a country like ours, yes, we have to accept it. The planning has to be done. That net has to be increased. That 3% should be made 6%. That's the maximum I can suggest. Otherwise, saying that we should be covering this entire basket of 3,000 technical institutes and give, not possible. Let's accept that fact also. So innovation, we have to be looking up to such like institutes as IITs. They need to be fed. They need to be like the investment I said. Money needs to be invested on them. I don't deny that fact. But yes, the accountability, I would like to be excused on this, but the accountability on these institutes should also be increased. They are getting the best of the brains of the country, and they are getting the maximum funding of the country. Let's give it whatever name we want to, expenditure or investment. But at the same time, if the same kind of, with due regards to the IITs and NITs, of course, I come from an NIT, an institute of national importance, but yes, the accountability must increase. That's what I believe.
Right. Dr. Ahuja, I'll come to you for the parting shot. I don't know, time is always relative. When things just seem to be getting warmed up, you run out of time. So we were given half an hour. I didn't realize that half an hour is just about passing by. But Dr. Ahuja, if you had to look to the future of technical education, are you optimistic about it? Because all said and done, while we are debating about it, India has done phenomenally well with its technical education. It had the foresight to build the IITs, the IIMs, the institutes of excellence, and all of that is paying off. And Indians are doing exceedingly well across the world. But when you look at the future of technical education in India, what is your general feeling? What is your general kind of thought on it?
I can say that the future of technical education in India is fantastic. We have a lot of opportunities now, and we have to grab it now. And we should take this as a main task and as a social responsibility also, when we talked about education. But as a technical education, because we are say that India is IT hub. So now pandemic has taught us how to use online education. So we can be now online guru, not only teaching within India, but all over the world. So this now is sky is the limit. We cannot say that, okay, we need that kind of infrastructure, that kind of infrastructure. But with the limited infrastructure also, we can be a leader now. And we have the biggest population of the young people, young minds. I can tell you, we can now achieve what we want to achieve. This is a time for India, and we will be the global leader when it's come to the technical education. We will be the providers or skilled manpower to the whole world in coming 10 years, and the world is looking towards us. They want a skilled manpower, and they are looking for India. So India's future is bright, and technical education future is very bright in India.
I would second what Dr. Ahuja said, that India's future is bright, and not only in terms of skilled manpower, but also I think we are on the cusp of achieving that critical mass where you'll suddenly have the dots start connecting faster, and you will have innovation and technology kind of really moving forward. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and I would have loved this conversation to go on faster because there were so many other areas that we could have gone into. Thank you, Dr. Maninder. Thank you, Dr. Setia. Thank you, Dr. Ahuja, for participating in News18 Punjab's Education Summit Season 3. Thank you so much.
I thank our guests for the valuable insights on the topic. Please stay on the stage, sir. I now request our Managing Editor, Jyoti Kamal, to felicitate our guests. Dr. Maninder Singh, Dean, Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala. Dr. Baldev Setia, Director, Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh. Professor Rajiv Ahuja, Director, IIT, Ropar. stay on the stage. I'll now request Mr. Sarabjit Singh Virk to please come on the stage. I'll now request Jyoti Kamalji to please felicitate Dr. Virk.